I think the advice that I would give to myself on success would be like, you get to define that. Like your environment doesn't define it. People you surround yourself with doesn't define it, but they sure do influence it. Hello and welcome to the Weaponized Marriage Podcast. I'm your host, Kendra Hewitt.
And I'm Ryan Hewitt.
And today's topic is working more fun and or rest and relaxation into your marriage.
I think this one should be just about working more fun into your marriage.
Okay.
Because, we decided to do this topic because we just did a vacation, a getaway, just the two of us to Spain for a wedding, but we also built in some fun.
Yeah.
But it definitely wasn't like rest and relaxation for me. It definitely was fun, and I would say like, what did you say? It's more changes your perspective, changes your brain, changes your thinking, gets you out of your environment.
It's really good to take a break from your environment.
Yeah. So why don't we talk about the benefits of getting out of your routine? So, I mean, we're huge proponents of having routine, right?
Mm-hmm.
Having habits in your marriage, having habits in your health, having habits in your family life and your spiritual life. But here's the thing, when you become so regimented and so rigid in your habits, like it's a good way to make progress, but it's also a good way to like run into like stagnant, I guess, just
boredom.
Boredom, burnout.
Yeah.
So I think a great way to get out of like boredom, burnout, and like stagnant energy in your marriage is like get away together and just get way out of your like routine and comfort zone.
Yeah. And I think I loved when you shared that patient shared about how like looking at a vacation versus a trip.
Yes.
Right? Like I thought
Big
that
difference.
was and I think that's worth repeating is that like you had a patient that you were adjusting and you were like, how was your vacation? And he was like, oh, you mean my trip?
Yeah. Well, here's the difference is like, did you bring the kids or not really? Like for us, it's, Lily's fantastic to travel with. We have a lot of fun, but it's not like restful and relaxing. I don't think we travel to rest and relax though. I definitely don't see like that's not why I like to travel with you, is not to like rest and relax. It's more to like get out of our environment and have fun and just change up the vibe.
Yeah. But I think at this time we got to rest, and like rest doesn't mean like, in our opinion, laying on a beach, drinking all day, but in this scenario, even in Spain, like Spain's not a culture that has two things that are really important to us. Number one, they don't work out. Like
The gym, yeah.
they don't go to the gym. That's not part of their like culture, which I knew because I lived there before. If you're in the bigger cities.
Well, Barcelona had, there's CrossFit gym.
Yeah.
There's gyms there. There's gym at our hotel, but yeah, like we were in like small town on the coast of the Mediterranean in Spain, and like, yeah, zero gyms. There was nobody going, there was nobody running, there was nobody out, like there's lots of people walking.
Yep. And we walked a lot.
Yeah, we walked a ton. So, but it was good. I mean, we took a break from training.
So that was like 5 days of you and I not physically training.
Yeah.
And I was actually shocked at how well you did.
What did you think was going to happen? Did you think I was going to like
crazy Ryan is going to come out? And you know what? For me, the rest from working out really showed me. It showed me a couple areas that I'm really stiff, and second of all, some of the injuries that I still have that I have not really been paying much attention to. And I kind of, when they rear their ugly heads, I'll kind of say, oh, this is because I lifted today and that's why I'm sore, or I did a really hard leg workout. But reality is that when I slowed down, I felt a lot of some of my things that actually need some more maintenance. That was something that was really helpful for me to give myself that rest and see like, oh shit, this still really freaking hurts because it needs some work.
Yeah, it was more like it just got you out of your routine, so it made you pay attention to
it. And that's what I was like saying, that I think this is a really good topic to talk about, because it's like, as much as we value routine, Even more so, routine's challenging for me, but I even getting out of my environment, realized the parts of my routine that I actually really like, and then the parts of my routine that maybe need also some cleanup.
Yeah, so getting out of the routine was one thing, but then also I think the other thing that we did was we stayed up late and slept in.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, it was fun.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody goes to bed before midnight in Spain.
They're, like, starting to go to dinner then.
It's crazy. Well, especially like the night of the wedding, we were up till like 4 AM, which
Yeah,
was like I hadn't been up at 4 AM since I don't even know how long, years and
yeah,
years.
and it
So
was really kind of fun. I think one of the things that really impacted me that I wanted to share on this was, like I said, I lived in Spain, but it was 23 years ago, or maybe 22 years ago. And I lived in a different part of Spain, a southern part of Spain for a while. And one of the things that really like hit me so hard when I was there is that like I feel like there were some things I was like looking for like the familiar like kind of comfort zone. Like I wanted to eat paella and like some of the things that I remember that I used to love when I was there. And I wanted to share them with you. But most of all, what I thought about, I was like, holy shit, what advice would I give to my younger self as I sit here 20 plus years later in like at a totally different stage of my life, right? So, like,
so
for example, in
what was it?
Barcelona,
What was the advice you gave
hold
wanted
on,
to
I'm
give
going to
yourself?
give you an example. In Barcelona, like, I stayed in a totally different area of Barcelona because I was like, I was just out of college and like, you're looking for different things. I was looking for the party,
Mhm.
you know? So I didn't stay in a hostel, but I stayed in like an area that was like young people, like just that were drinking and partying all night. And then this time around, I didn't plan this, but we stayed really close to the city center, which is where like all the designer shops are and stuff like that, which is not our style. Like, but it was a really nice area. And I was like, man, I was like, this is what like the difference 20 plus years makes, right? Is like you go from kind of basically a hostel to like a nice hotel. And
Your
I,
standards change
first of
overnight.
all, I was like saying, like, is like, you just upgrade your like, life, but sometimes you don't really realize, like, where you came from. So, it was just a really nice reflection to be like, "Hey, I remember here when I probably had a couple euros in my pocket, and that was all I had." I didn't have
So what is the advice you'd give to your
so,
younger self?
some of the things I thought about was, like, if you thought, like how do I explain this? Um Like, looking back, like, I think that if I looked back at my 20-year-old self, the first thing I would tell myself is, "Don't give a shit so much about what other people think of you because they're actually not really fucking paying attention to you."
Mhm,
Which I think is a big lesson that comes up often for me of, like, how much I still freaking care about that.
mhm.
Um, and the other thing that I thought about was the one that stood out the most was about how, like, it's our culture in America, and maybe this is just the achiever in me, and I know you have this part too of, like, to not like, to drive and be on to the next thing and not really savor and celebrate, like, the present.
Mhm.
Again, that's probably somewhat personality style, but, like, I think about how, like, it was hard for me to leave Lily, like, and go to Europe for 5 days. It was definitely helpful that your dad was here, but it's just like, man, I was, like, thinking about all of the different levels of responsibility I have now and about how I wanna be more present with those responsibilities rather than being like, if I was there in Spain 20 years ago, I was probably like, "And then I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna do this, and then I'm gonna make this much money," and, like, that's just kinda, like, how my brain was always ran, and then, like, you look at the culture of Spain, and I'm not saying there's not driven people in Spain at all. There's definitely driven and a lot of wealth there, but they live a different lifestyle where it's, like, much more relaxed about success, and I think the advice that I would give to myself on success would be, like, you get to define that. Like, your environment doesn't define it, people you surround yourself with doesn't define it, but they sure do influence it,
Mhm,
and so to choose wisely.
mhm.
I think that would be probably the second thing that I would really look at is, like, like, how did I define success? And that there's room for the definition to evolve
Mhm.
for you as a person.
Okay.
So those were 2 things I thought of while I was there. Um, just like I said, really looking for not approval from other people, but more acceptance. And definitely comparison, like thinking about comparing myself to others. Like I think that
So
came
those
up
are
a lot.
those are some things that came to you because you got out of your environment and went to Spain?
Yeah. And just like I said, I went to an environment that I've been in before and
Mhm.
it just made me really like, I don't know why, but I'm in this stage where I just had this conversation with one of my clients this week and she was saying about how she's an accountant and about how she had a um, client that's our age, we're about the same age. She filed his taxes and then he dropped dead the next day.
Mm.
And she was saying about how like it just hit her hard. And one of the things she was sharing was is that this guy has a business partner and the business partner doesn't know anything about their money.
Mm.
And one of the things she was saying that we processed a little bit together was about how like it just reminded her how fleeting your life could be.
Mhm.
And I was like, man, I was like, I feel like I'm in a little bit of this shift being I don't know if it's because 'cause I'm coming closer to my birthday or whatever, but, like, where it's like, shit, you don't know how much time you have left. Like,
Yeah.
how do you want this to look?"
So I think that's applicable to this podcast as far as, like, the message we wanna deliver is, like, don't wait until you think you have time to have fun,
Yeah.
right? Like, this was a stretch for us to get away because, I had to take 3 days off from the office, which I can do, thankfully. But we had to, like, fly my dad in. We had to get, special walker for Huckleberry. We had to make sure the itinerary was all set for Lily.
I
And
literally spent hours
yeah,
and weeks prepping for, like,
yeah, but I mean, it
us
all
to
ends
go.
up being worth it
Mhm.
if you know, enjoy the moments when you're there, right? So, like, the fun that we were able to have that we don't usually is, like, staying up late and sleeping in, right? Like, we went to an awesome wedding. For me, it was really great because it was, like a trilingual wedding. So
Mm.
there was Spanish, English, and French, and I speak English and French. So I could speak to people like Belgian people that were there that only spoke French and Spanish. So it's just fun to communicate to people that, I was able to practice some of the French that I know. Yeah, it was just cool, just like the clash of like different cultures. There was like Algerian, there was Belgian, Spanish, US, UK. So it was just like very unique because we in the US, you'd never really get that kind of wedding.
Mhm.
It's usually just like one culture, right? Like
Yeah.
a Greek wedding or a like, you know, whatever, just like a traditional American wedding. So it was really fun for us to like, dance and,
Mhm.
hang out with different cultures and experience some of their traditions and foods. It just expands a lot of like your experiences together. So I think for us, that's a big value we have is travel, not for like, let's go travel and just like veg
Mhm.
and rest.
Mhm.
It's more to like experience some of the world together and take in, other cultures and fun activities, which otherwise would look a lot different 20 years ago, even 10 years ago when we were married. So,
Mhm.
um, that obviously everybody has like different economic abilities to like experience different things when they travel, but it really doesn't like when we were in Veneros and those small Spanish towns, it was really inexpensive.
Mhm.
Excuse me. Like some of our dinners were like 40 euros. Like
Yeah.
otherwise they would have been like triple here.
Yeah.
So, just
You can make it happen.
yeah, not waiting until like you're retired or not
Mhm.
waiting until the kids leave the house, not waiting until like okay, like all the stars are aligned and we've saved up enough money and like,
Yeah.
just take the opportunities. Like this opportunity presented itself to go to a wedding in Spain and we have a big trip planned for our 15th anniversary. We took 10 days off in February. It really like it was like, "Oh my god, can we do
Yeah.
this?"
2
And I'm
things
glad we
stand
did it.
yeah, 2 things stand out for me for that, and one what I was gonna get to was, when we went to the castle and we were like, walking up the steps of that castle, so we went to this really cool, medieval castle, and it's where they filmed we found out later, it's where they have filmed a lot of Game of Thrones, which was I thought it made it
Mhm.
even cooler. Um, but we went to this castle and there was these like all these steps, right? It's a medieval castle. And for you to access all the parts of the castle, you had to go up these steps, right? So I was like, all I could think about is like, this is why you do this when you're younger. And there were a lot of older
Well,
people,
it's
like
also even better of the messages. This is why you stay healthy and
stay
fit
stay healthy and fit.
even when you're,
But that's
older.
but for me, it was more like, this is why you don't wait, right? Like, this is why you go for it. And that experience of going to the castle really stood out for me of like, man, I'm glad I'm doing this like now. And like I said, it wasn't like a big thing, but because of there was older people that were kind of just even struggling to get up some of the paths, I was like, it just reminded me of that, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely some people I was a little worried about, but
Yeah.
there wasn't a lot of, like, fat American tourists doing this castle. Like,
No.
there's definitely things that yeah, when you're younger, but also it's just
When
like,
you're fit.
you need to stay healthy and fit if you
Mhm.
wanna do this stuff
Yeah.
later in life.
Yeah, and it just reminds me of, like, and I think I've said this story on the podcast before of, like, my grandmother, like, who, like, kept promising me she was gonna take me to Paris when I turned 16. And then when I turned 16, she had retired, which would have been awesome, but then she had Parkinson's disease, and she was, like, kind of in this time warp of fear, never took care of herself physically, um, and I loved her so much, but every time I get on a plane, I think about that, is like, I never got that chance, and about it's like, take the chance now, and, like, really work on working that chance, like, this into your marriage in just like you said, in whatever economic way that looks feasible for you,
Mhm.
and I'm talking about a trip with your spouse.
Yeah, well, spouse, significant other, yeah,
Yeah, not kids not involved.
but just getting out of your environment, right?
Yep.
Like, whatever it is, doesn't have to be to Spain. It could be to, like,
Mhm.
where we are, it could be, like, drive 2 hours
To
north
Vermont.
to Vermont, rent a cabin and just be with each other out of your day to day. And just like those are ways that you have different conversations and you have like, you know, spending time with one another where it's not like in front of the TV or like in between trying to take care of the kids
Yeah,
or like on just the weekend, like at this time where we have freedom.
yeah. One of the other things that really stood out from the wedding, I loved the 3 languages, that was really it was really magical. Um, but remember that one family from Costa Rica?
Yeah.
And they were a family, they had 2 sons with them, their son was probably I think he was about maybe 13 or 14 years old, and then the younger one was 10 or 11. And it was a father, mother, and these 2 sons. And those boys literally, like, they sat and they were so well-mannered, and then they partied with their parents all night, including their parents let them drink alcohol and stuff like that, like, and it was so sweet because it's like then the husband was dancing with the wife, and these 2 men, boys,
Yeah.
got to see, like, an example of, like, "Hey, this is how my dad treats my mom."
Mhm.
Like, this is how they have even, like, fun together. Like, think about it, like, how often your kids even get to see you have fun together,
Mhm.
where it's not like, "You're going the wrong way," or like, like, "Why are
Well,
you driving so fast?" You know what I mean? Like, all those funny things that, like, you think doesn't matter, but, like, does. It like, little things do matter.
Mhm.
And to your point on the conversations, we had some great conversations on our drives because, like, it was nice because, like, our phones kinda worked, but not like we weren't on them a lot. So, it was like, it actually made us have this time to have these, like, conversations that we wouldn't have otherwise. Like, we talked about, like, what do we want the summer to look like, and what do we want our themes to be, which is a conversation we've never had. And I was sharing this concept with Ryan, and, like, um, it was just, like, so great to, like, get out of our environment, once you get past, like, getting to where you need to go, right? Like,
Mhm.
so it was really special.
Yeah, cool.
So,
What else you gotta say about that before we wrap up?
I think we need to wrap it
Yeah.
because we get someplace else we gotta
Yeah,
be.
so get out of your environment, have fun. Don't wait till you're married
Yep,
or sorry, retired or
yep.
the kids leave the house or you're
I know
crippled
how Ryan
crippled and
does it.
old.
And just, like, think about, like, how can you work together to make something fun? Like, it might not be like, it might be one destination, but you guys have individual things you wanna do. Like, when we went to Aruba, you wanted to dive, right? And it was like, I was just, like, wanted to be on the beach with Lily, right? Like, when we did a family trip. So it's
Yeah,
like
we're not talking about family
I
trips.
know, but we found a location that we both had things that we could do
Yeah.
apart and together. So I think that it is important to, like, have a conversation of, like, "Hey, what is, like, on for lack of a better term, what is on your bucket list? Like, what are some of the places you'd love to see?" And, like, what a great date night conversation.
Mhm.
Like, I'd way rather have that conversation than, like, "Hey, so this week we need to do this, this, and this because, taxes are due," and, like, all that kind of stuff. It's a great conversation to be like, "Why would you wanna go there? Like, what isn't the interest to you?" Like, when we talked about Poland, right? And then also too, is that, like, the next step of that kind of exercise is like, "Hey, what are some places" is, like, work together and, like, find a date or a way that you could maybe make it and put it on your schedule.
You just plan it, like,
Yeah.
plan family vacations, but then just plan just to the 2 of you
But
vacations.
I also think that when you're planning the 2 of you vacations, you have to be on the same page in terms of helping each other plan it. It
Mhm.
can't be like, "Hey, someone plans all of the parts."
That's a whole other podcast.
Yes, because that is something that we used to do that really used to
Yeah, well, let's stick to
backfire.
get out, have fun
Yeah.
together in your marriage. That's not just a
So that's our
date night.
challenge. That's our
Yeah,
challenge in closing is for you to get out of your environment, pick a place that you both would want to pursue. Maybe not at the same time. Maybe it's so and Susie Q wants to go here and Bobby wants to go someplace else, but they're on the list, right? And then pick a time frame and get something on schedule. That's it.
okay, sounds good. Wrap it up.
All right. If you enjoyed this down and dirty, quick hit podcast and would like to share it with someone who you also might think that might benefit from it, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe.
Good job,
Okay,
and we'll see you guys next
next
week.
week.